The sky burned as the first wave of Dominion warships descended upon Earth. Massive vessels, black as the void, blocked out the sun, casting long shadows over the cities below. Humanity had seen the invaders coming for weeks, but all preparations had been meaningless. The Dominion was not just another alien fleet. It was the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, crushed countless civilizations, and now Earth was their next target. The attack began without warning. Orbital defense stations were reduced to molten wreckage in minutes. Satellites blinked out of existence, cut down by precise energy beams. Fighter squadrons scrambled to meet the invaders, but they never stood a chance. The Dominion ships moved with cold efficiency, cutting through Earth's defenses like a blade through paper. Military command centers struggled to coordinate a response, but every message ended the same way, with silence. In the streets of New London, civilians ran for shelter as Dominion drop pods rained down like meteorites. The ground shook with every impact, splitting roads apart and sending cars tumbling. The pods hissed open, and out stepped the enemy. Tall, armored beings with glowing visors, their weapons humming with lethal energy. They moved without hesitation, spreading out in formations, taking control of key locations. Those who resisted were gunned down within seconds. Those who surrendered were shackled and dragged away. Across the world, the story was the same. Washington, Beijing, Moscow, Sydney. Every major city fell within hours. The Dominion was not here for negotiations. They had studied humanity from a distance, seen their wars, their divisions, their reliance on technology. The humans were weak, scattered, unprepared. The invasion was supposed to be swift, a mere formality before Earth was absorbed into the Dominion's empire. General Marcus Reed watched the chaos unfold from an underground bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. He had been a soldier for decades, fought wars that had pushed him to the edge, but nothing had prepared him for this. Screens around him showed live footage from all over the planet. Burning cities, fleeing civilians, collapsing governments. Humanity was losing. A young officer turned to him, panic in his eyes. "Sir, we've lost contact with most of the resistance forces. The Dominion is wiping out any organized defense before we can even regroup." Marcus clenched his jaw. "And the civilians?" "They're taking them, sir. Some are being executed, but most are being rounded up and transported. Somewhere." Marcus felt a cold rage settle in his chest. The Dominion wasn't just here to conquer. They were collecting prisoners, likely to be used as slaves or experiments. He had seen what happened to species that resisted the Dominion. Entire populations vanished. Planets were stripped of life. If humanity fell, there would be no one left to tell their story. The Dominion thought the battle was over. They believed they had already won, but they had made one critical mistake. They had left humanity alive. The first signs of resistance started small. In the ruins of Paris, a group of civilians ambushed a Dominion patrol, using stolen weapons to take down their armored oppressors. In the mountains of South America, an old military base, thought to be destroyed, suddenly came back online, launching a missile strike that crippled a Dominion warship. In the deserts of Africa, warriors who had once fought against each other now stood side by side, striking from the shadows, eliminating Dominion officers before vanishing into the night. Humanity was not fighting for control. They were not fighting for power. They were fighting to survive. And when humans fought for survival, they became something the Dominion had never faced before. In a hidden command center beneath the ruins of Washington, a group of survivors gathered around a single flickering screen. A message played in a loop, broadcasted across encrypted channels. The voice was calm, steady, filled with something the Dominion had not expected: determination. "This is not the end. They think we are weak. They think we are broken. But they do not understand what we truly are. We are not defeated. We are not done. If they keep attacking, they will see what we really are." The Dominion expected Earth to fall in days, maybe weeks. They had seen it happen before. A species resists, fights back with everything they have, and then collapses under the weight of superior firepower. But something was different this time. Earth did not crumble. It did not beg for surrender. Instead, it went quiet. Too quiet. At first, the Dominion commanders thought this was a sign of their victory. They had shattered human defenses, wiped out major cities, and established occupation zones in what remained. There was no military left to oppose them, or so they thought. But then, their soldiers started disappearing. It began with patrols. Squads sent into ruined cities failed to report back. At first, the Dominion assumed it was due to poor communication or human stragglers attacking in desperation. But when larger units started vanishing, they realized something was wrong. Entire garrisons left behind nothing but bloodstains and empty armor. Surveillance footage captured strange distortions, shadowy figures that moved too fast for the cameras to track. The Dominion had assumed they were hunting the last survivors of a defeated species. Now, it seemed like they were the ones being hunted. In one of the captured strongholds, an officer named Valcor watched security feeds in frustration. The recordings made no sense. One moment, his soldiers were standing guard, weapons in hand. The next, the lights flickered, and when they came back, gone. No gunfire, no alarms, just silence. He clenched his jaw, sending out another scouting team. He needed answers. The squad moved through the shattered ruins of the city, their armored boots crunching against debris. The Dominion's technology allowed them to see in multiple spectrums, detect heat signatures, and pick up even the faintest movement. But here, in the dead streets of Earth's fallen cities, everything felt wrong. The air was thick with something unseen, something lurking just beyond their reach. Then the first scream echoed through the ruins. The squad turned, weapons raised, but there was nothing. A second scream. Then silence. One by one, they vanished, dragged into the shadows by hands they never saw. Their commander, watching from the safety of the base, felt a chill run through him. This was not a battle. This was something else. Something far worse. Humanity had gone underground, but they were not broken. In the darkness, they had adapted. They had learned how to fight without being seen. They had turned the ruins of their world into a hunting ground, and the Dominion were the prey. These were not soldiers fighting for orders. These were survivors fighting for existence. In the mountains of Asia, remnants of the human military coordinated secret strikes. They never attacked head-on, never gave the enemy a fair fight. They used old tunnels, abandoned infrastructure, and guerrilla tactics that turned the Dominion's strength against them. Drones, hacked and repurposed, delivered explosives to critical targets. Communication relays were destroyed before the enemy could call for help. Every time the Dominion tried to retaliate, they found themselves shooting at ghosts. The resistance was spreading. Civilians, once terrified and helpless, were now part of the fight. Farmers set traps in the countryside. Engineers built makeshift EMPs to disable enemy armor. Even children learned how to move unseen, slipping past guards to steal supplies. The Dominion had invaded thinking they were facing an enemy that would break. Instead, they had awakened something relentless. And then, the Dominion learned the truth. It wasn't just soldiers fighting them. It wasn't just trained warriors. It was everyone. Humanity itself had become the weapon. Across Earth, Dominion officers received a chilling message. It played on every hacked broadcast, every Dominion frequency. The voice was calm, controlled, but beneath it was something raw, something terrifying. You think we are weak. You think you have won. But you have not seen what we truly are. Keep attacking, and you will. The war was no longer about territory. It was no longer about control. The Dominion had made a mistake that could not be undone. They had shown humanity what was at stake. And now, humanity was ready to show them what happened to those who pushed too far. The Dominion had underestimated humanity, and now They were beginning to understand their mistake. Their invasion had been swift, their victories decisive, but something was wrong. Earth was not behaving like the other conquered worlds. There was no clear leadership to crush, no organized military to dismantle. Instead, the resistance was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Every time the Dominion tried to reassert control, something new hit them. Ambushes, sabotage, entire battalions wiped out overnight without a single shot fired. It wasn't war anymore. It was something else. It was fear. High Commander Xelvath sat in his command center aboard the flagship Dreadfang, reviewing the growing list of losses. In less than a month, they had lost thousands of soldiers. It made no sense. Humanity should have collapsed. Their weapons were outdated, their technology primitive compared to the Dominions. Yet, somehow, the humans had turned the ruins of their world into a death trap. Reports kept coming in, each more disturbing than the last. A supply convoy had been found abandoned in the Siberian tundra, its guards missing without a trace. A heavily fortified base in what was once New York City had gone completely silent overnight. When reinforcements arrived, they found nothing but empty halls and dried blood. And then there was the most chilling discovery of all. A Dominion battleship, fully crewed, floating derelict in orbit. No damage, no signs of forced entry, just silence. When they finally breached the ship's bridge, they found a message scrawled across the walls in human blood. "We warned you." Xelvath clenched his fists. This was impossible. No species had ever done this before. No species had ever turned the Dominion's own fear against them. It had to be psychological warfare, some kind of trick. But the Dominion was not weak. They would not be intimidated by shadows. He ordered his forces to increase patrols, to flush out the human resistance wherever it hid. He doubled security around key installations, deployed drones to scan for hidden threats. It didn't matter. The resistance continued, striking harder than ever. Dominion officers were found hanging from ruined buildings, their visors shattered, their weapons missing. Armored vehicles were buried in ambushes, their crews pulled out before they could react. The Dominion started issuing curfews, locking down entire regions. But that only made things worse, because now, their soldiers were the ones who were trapped. Sergeant Kelfar had once been proud to serve in the Dominion military. He had fought on a dozen worlds, crushed countless rebellions. But Earth was different. It was cursed. He and his unit had been sent to track down a human resistance cell hiding in the ruins of Tokyo. The mission had seemed simple. The humans were weak, under-equipped. This was just another extermination mission. But now his squad was gone. One by one, they had vanished into the darkness, taken by something unseen. He gripped his rifle tightly, his breathing heavy as he scanned the crumbling city around him. The air was thick with smoke and dust, the silence unnatural. His visor detected no movement, no life signs, but he knew they were there, watching, waiting. A shadow moved. He spun, firing blindly, but hit nothing. A whisper echoed through the ruins. Not in his language. Not Dominion. Human. "You should have left." Panic surged through him. He turned to run, but something grabbed his leg. Before he could scream, he was dragged into the darkness, never to be seen again. Xelvath received his final report from Tokyo 3 hours later. A single line of text, sent from a dead officer's communicator. "It's not war anymore. It's a hunt, and we're the prey." The High Commander stared at the message, his mind racing. He had led invasions across the galaxy, broken civilizations with ease. But Earth was different. Humanity was different. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for revenge. And they would not stop until every last invader was wiped from their planet. The Dominion had come to conquer Earth. Now, they were fighting to escape it. The Dominion had never known fear like this. Entire fleets had been sent to subjugate Earth, and yet, every day they lost more ground. More soldiers vanished. More strongholds fell silent. The humans were not engaging in traditional warfare. They were striking like ghosts, appearing for only a moment before fading back into the ruins. The Dominion had superior numbers, superior firepower, superior technology. And yet, it no longer mattered. The humans had turned the war into something the Dominion was not prepared for. On the surface, High Commander Selvath's forces were stretched thin. Patrols no longer ventured far from their bases. Dominion troops moved in tight formations, covering every angle. But it didn't help. If anything, it made them easier targets. Explosions ripped through supply lines. Snipers picked off officers with impossible precision. Entire convoys were swallowed by the endless ruins of human cities, never to be seen again. Selvath sat in his command chamber aboard the Dreadfang, listening to the latest casualty reports. They had lost another outpost in the Arctic. A full garrison had been stationed there, well armed, well fortified. But something had happened. When reinforcements arrived, the base was still standing, but the soldiers were gone. No bodies, no signs of a fight, just empty halls, and the sound of wind howling through abandoned corridors. The Dominion had faced resistance before. They had crushed worlds that refused to bow. But never had they encountered an enemy that refused to die. Humanity was not fighting for victory. They were fighting to erase their invaders. In a captured Dominion communications hub, deep in the underground tunnels of what had once been New York, a group of human survivors monitored enemy transmissions. Marcus Reed, former general of Earth's fallen military, watched the panicked messages scrolling across the screen. "They're pulling back," one of his officers whispered. "They're scared." Marcus didn't smile. Fear was good. Fear made the enemy reckless. But fear alone wouldn't win this war. "They're scared, but they're not gone," he said. "Not yet." His eyes scanned the Dominion fleet movements. They were starting to consolidate, pulling troops from smaller bases and gathering them into heavily defended zones. They had realized that spreading out only made them easier targets. They were adapting. "We need to move faster," Marcus said, turning to his team. "Hit their communications, cut off their food supplies, make sure they can't trust their own security. We don't just want them afraid. We want them desperate." Far from Earth's ruins, aboard one of the remaining Dominion warships, a young officer named Vectal struggled to keep his composure. He had never questioned the might of the Dominion. He had been raised to believe they were unstoppable. But now he could hear it in the voices of his commanders, in the hushed conversations of the crew. They were losing. Vectal's mentor, an older veteran named Lord Kurvar, stood beside him, staring out of the viewport at the ruined planet below. "This is not just a war," Kurvar said. "This is a reckoning." Vectal swallowed hard. "High Command still believes we can suppress them. We have the numbers, the firepower." Kurvar turned to him, his gaze heavy. "We've had the numbers on every world we conquered. We've had the firepower. It has never mattered before. But this," he gestured toward the planet, "this is something else." The young officer hesitated. "Then what do we do?" For the first time in his long career, Kurvar did not have an answer. Back on the surface, a Dominion forward base in South America had gone silent. The command center, built with reinforced alloys and guarded by heavy artillery, was supposed to be impenetrable. It had been one of the most secure locations on the planet. And yet, when a recon team arrived, they found the walls breached, the power grid fried, and the barracks empty. A single message had been left behind, burned into the metal floor with precision lasers. "Leave now, or we will show you what we truly are." The Dominion had pushed humanity to the edge. But now, they were about to see what happened when humanity pushed back. The Dominion was unraveling. What had once been a confident invasion had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. Every attempt to regain control of Earth had failed. Their supply lines were in chaos, their forces spread too thin, and their morale shattered by an enemy they could not see, could not predict, and could not break. What had begun as an organized military campaign had become something else entirely. Now, They were no longer fighting for conquest. They were fighting to escape. High Commander Selvath could no longer deny the truth. The Dominion had underestimated humanity, not just in their will to fight, but in their ability to adapt, to strike from the shadows, to turn a war of occupation into a slaughterhouse for the invaders. He stood in his war room aboard the Dreadfang, staring at a massive holographic display of Earth. The glowing red marks that represented Dominion control were fading, replaced by the creeping darkness of human resistance. "They have forced us into a war we do not understand," one of his generals admitted. "We are losing entire units with no trace of battle." Zelvath's claws tightened. He had reviewed every report, seen every horrifying detail. Dominion soldiers were no longer just dying. They were vanishing, disappearing into the ruins without a sound. Patrols found their own bases abandoned, messages carved into walls, bodies never recovered. The humans had stopped fighting like soldiers. Now, they were hunting like predators. Across the war-torn planet, Dominion outposts were collapsing. In the mountains of Asia, a key command center had been infiltrated, not by an army, not by warships, but by ghosts in the night. Security footage captured only brief glimpses, shadows moving too fast, figures in camouflaged armor striking before alarms could be sounded. When reinforcements arrived, all they found were empty halls and flickering monitors displaying a single message: "You should have listened." In the ruins of what was once London, a Dominion officer named Valric huddled in a makeshift command post. His unit had been stationed in the city for weeks, and in that time they had seen horrors beyond anything he could comprehend. His soldiers were some of the best the Dominion had to offer, trained to fight in any environment. And yet, they were dying one by one, without warning, without explanation. It started with small things: weapons vanishing in the night, rations tainted, making soldiers sick, drones reprogrammed to turn against their own operators. Then, it escalated. One morning, they woke to find their sentries gone, their armored vehicles burned from the inside out. No alarms had gone off. No battle had been fought. It was as if something had crept into their camp and torn them apart without making a sound. Now, Valric sat in the darkness, gripping his weapon. He hadn't slept in days. None of them had. The air itself felt wrong. Every shadow seemed to move. Every whisper of wind carried a warning. His second-in-command sat beside him, shaking. "We need to leave," the soldier said, voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't war. It's something else." Valric wanted to argue, to tell him that the Dominion did not retreat, but he couldn't, because deep down, he knew the truth. They were not fighting an enemy they could understand. They were fighting something else. Somewhere in the cold void of space, Dominion reinforcements were still arriving, but the messages they received were growing more desperate, more fractured. Reports of entire fleets going silent, ships sent to reinforce the ground forces arriving to find nothing but wreckage and echoes of distress signals. Aboard the flagship Dreadfang, Selvath received the latest transmission from his officers, still trapped on the surface. Their voices were strained, trembling with fear. "They are everywhere. We see nothing, but they are here. We hear them whispering in the ruins, watching, waiting. This is not war anymore. This is their home, and we are the intruders." Selvath turned away from the transmission, his mind racing. He had conquered dozens of worlds. He had seen the mightiest civilizations bow before the Dominion. And yet, never had he encountered a species that fought like this, that refused to die, that turned fear itself into a weapon. For the first time in his career, he made a decision he had never considered before. "We are abandoning Earth," he said. The command room fell into stunned silence. This war is over. No one argued, because they all knew the truth. The Dominion had come to conquer Earth. Instead, they had awakened something far worse. The order had been given. The Dominion was retreating. It should have been a simple process: evacuate troops, pull back ships, leave behind whatever couldn't be carried. But nothing on Earth had been simple since the invasion began. The humans had made sure of that. High Commander Xelvath stood on the bridge of the Dreadfang, watching as his forces scrambled to escape. Dropships lifted off from burning cities, fleeing into the sky as human forces continued to harass them. The humans should have been celebrating. Their world had survived. Their enemy was leaving. But they weren't done yet. They weren't letting the Dominion go without a final lesson. Across the planet, Dominion ships were under attack, not by massive armies, not by fleets, but by small, precise strikes that disrupted their escape. Sabotaged refueling stations, hacked navigational systems, explosives placed on key exit routes. The humans weren't just forcing the invaders to leave. They were making sure they suffered while doing it. On the ground, Valric and his surviving soldiers fought their way to the last extraction zone. His squad had once been 200 strong. Now less than 30 remained. Their once pristine armor was battered, their weapons nearly empty. Every step toward safety was met with unseen horrors. As they ran through the ruins of a fallen city, something moved in the shadows. A single shot rang out, and the soldier next to him collapsed. Another scream echoed from behind, and another soldier was gone. They couldn't see their attackers. They couldn't fight back. They could only run. By the time Valric reached the final extraction ship, only 6 of his squad remained. As the hatch closed and the ship lifted off, he looked out at the planet below. The cities were in ruins, but they were still human cities. The people who had survived would rebuild. And more importantly, they had won. On the Dreadfang, Selvath's mind raced. The retreat was costly. The Dominion had lost more ships, more soldiers, in the final days than they had in the entire war. And even as they left, the humans made sure they remembered this defeat. A final message had been sent across all Dominion frequencies. It was simple, written in the invaders' own language. This was your warning. Never come back. The Dominion fleet jumped to warp, leaving Earth behind. Silence filled the command deck of the Dreadfang. No one spoke. No one celebrated their survival. Because deep down, they all knew the truth. The Dominion had faced many enemies. They had crushed civilizations, enslaved entire species. But this war had been different. Humanity had been different. They had not just fought to survive. They had fought to destroy, to erase their enemy completely. And worse than that, they had enjoyed it. Xelvath turned away from the viewport, his claws tightening. Earth had been a mistake, a nightmare, one that the Dominion would never dare repeat. And yet, deep in the void of space, where no Dominion ships ventured, where the darkness swallowed all things, something else was watching. Because humanity had changed. And now, they were looking outward.